Welcome to the Calm Mom Podcast, the show for ambitious women ready to get off the hot mess express. I know you've got a lot going on. You work so hard, you're raising an incredible family, and sometimes it can be overwhelming. I'm your host, Michelle Grosser. I'm a certified master life coach, attorney, wife, and mom. And years ago, I was right where you are. I was running a busy law practice while raising a family, and I was on the fast track to burnout. I thought I just needed to be more organized or have better routines, but it was learning how to heal and regulate my nervous system that expanded my capacity to gracefully hold more of this big, beautiful life. You too are worthy of an extraordinary life in and beyond motherhood. Learning to be a calm, anchoring presence in your home and at work is going to be your superpower. If you're here to do the inner work that brings a sense of calm amidst the chaos, I'm here to join you on that journey. Each time you press play, your growth continues. So let's get at it. Hey friends, it's Michelle. Welcome back to the podcast. On today's show, we're going to talk about, something that hits close to home for me and probably for many of you too, especially those of us who have gotten all the things done and get all the things done and might even identify with having perfectionistic tendencies, right? We like things to be a certain way. But man, when you're a perfectionist or running those patterns, that standard is just, it's a lot, right? It's like, it's never good enough. And you hold yourself to these really high expectations everywhere, at work, at home, in your relationships. And I think sometimes even when we do hit the mark, there's kind of still this whisper of, well, I could have done it better, right? Or I should have done more, or I could have added that, or I should have said this. And that whisper is exhausting, you guys. And I think it's also one of the most overlooked early signs of burnout. So let's talk about it today. Let's talk about that intersection of perfectionism and burnout. And specifically, I want to walk us through 5 signs of burnout that tend to show up, particularly for people who tend to run perfectionist patterns. But before we do that, let's just kind of start with a discussion really briefly on what perfectionism actually is. Like, what are we talking about here and where does it come from? So perfectionism, I think sometimes we think about someone who just has like a Pinterest house, or someone whose, desk is always perfectly clean, or someone whose kids look like something out of a catalog, or they're all perfectly dressed, or they're the people that have like organizers in their tote bags, right? It's just like they're kind of always neat and wanting to do a good job and putting everything together. But perfectionism is actually so much deeper than that, right? We know psychologically that perfectionism is actually a protective strategy. It's rooted in our nervous system. Surprise, surprise. It's our nervous system's way of saying like, hey, if I can just do everything right? If it can just be orderly and clean and perfect and the best and whatever it is, if I can do everything right, then I'm going to be safe, because then I'm not going to be rejected. Then I'm not going to be embarrassed. Then I'm not going to be abandoned or outcast or passed over or what have you. And I will be loved and accepted and applauded and all of the things that our nervous system is seeking for safety. And so often when we think about perfectionism and when we talk about these patterns, guys, these things have likely started so long ago, before you got this job that you're in, before you had kids, before you went to college. Like it often starts in childhood, especially in environments where love was kind of tied to conditions, right? And I don't mean that in this really like overt, like, I don't know, like I think of like a Cinderella way, right? It's like if the house is clean, then you get a compliment. Usually it's so much more subtle than that, right? We had great parents. They were affirming. They saw us. They loved us. And when we performed, right? When we were well behaved, when we got the good grades, when we made the team, when we, made first chair, when we were the captain, what have you, there was something else that happened there that felt really good for us, right? And somewhere along the way, that pattern kind of came to be. And our system really internalized this subconscious belief that our worth was tied to our achievement, or our worth was tied to our accolades, or our worth was tied to our output. And the nervous system is so stinking smart, right? This is its job. It remembers what works. And then it's like, okay, more of that. So when we do things, quote unquote, perfectly and got affirmation, or that prevented a conflict, or it prevented feedback that was uncomfortable or made us feel like we were being shamed or what have you, that became a reinforced neural pathway for us. But here's the problem. That pathway, those perfectionistic patterns don't stay adaptive forever, right? Over time, we've been running this pattern for decades. Like anything else, right? The patterns aren't deep. They become rigid. They become automatic. And over time, if we don't have good boundaries and parameters around them, they can really become exhausting. So perfectionism kind of puts our nervous system in this chronic state of fight or flight, this chronic sympathetic state, because our stress response is always kind of subtly activated. Like we're always scanning for what might go wrong. What does everyone think? Is every T crossed? Is every I dotted? I always say that backwards. Right? We're always like anticipating mistakes. We're bracing for rejection. And over time, guys, like you have no idea how much that can wear down our system. It's exhausting to always be on the lookout and always be just hyper alert and focused that things are perfect, or the high standard is like being met, even though there's a part of us that's like, I know that's actually not sustainable or not even realistic. And the result can often be burnout. So it doesn't always look like a crash and burn, right? It doesn't always look like a collapse. So often, especially in those of us who can tend to run these patterns, it can look like over functioning. So let's kind of get down to the nitty gritty. Let's talk about 5 sneaky signs that your perfectionistic tendencies might be leading you into burnout. And if you resonate with these guys, this is good news, because you can do something about it now, right? You can step back a little bit and be like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, I'm curious about why I do that. Oh, that makes a lot of sense about why I feel exhausted or like I'm heading toward burnout. Let's make some adjustments. Okay. All right. So sign number 1 of burnout that every perfectionist should watch out for is that nothing you do ever feels, and I'm going to put this in air quotes, good enough. Nothing you do ever feels quote unquote good enough. And this is one of the hallmark signs, you guys, and one that perfectionists often brush off because they're just so used to it, right? That was me. Like I'd finish the project, I'd host the dinner party, I'd finish my to-do list. But after all of these, I don't know, accomplishments or events or milestones or whatever, there was not like a real sense of satisfaction, right? I didn't like stop and celebrate and reflect and be like, dang, like that was so much work. Like I crushed that. I'm so proud of myself. I'm so grateful for my team and my community and my family and like everyone that came together to make this happen. I didn't sit down and journal and reflect. And like, I was just like, bam, on to the next thing, right? On to the next thing. And that is rooted in a dysregulated reward system. When your nervous system is stuck in that survival mode, fight, flight, survive, go, go, go. Our brain has such a hard time registering that we've actually achieved something noteworthy, right? And we all know about dopamine. We hear about cheap dopamine. We hear about dopamine hits. Guys, dopamine, that neurotransmitter that signals reward and satisfaction in our brains, when we're stuck in this like loop of perfectionism, dopamine just doesn't hit the way it should. It's just true, right? Our brain adapts or has adapted to equate like, oh man, we're almost there. It's almost good enough, right? As safety. So we're always striving and we're always pushing harder and we're always trying to make it better and tweaking and modifying and improving and editing. But it's really just our nervous system's mechanism to stay safe by doing more. So if you can relate to that and kind of catch yourself in that, here's what I would recommend doing instead. Can you start practicing a practice, frankly, of internal validation? Like the next time you complete something, and if I know you, it's going to be like later today or tomorrow or over the weekend, right? When you complete something, pause, breathe, right? Notice how that accomplishment feels in your body. Can you be grateful for that and to yourself, right? Can you honor and celebrate yourself? Can you allow the experience that like, this was pretty good. This was enough. Like let that settle in, even if it's just for a few seconds or a few minutes. Track your progress in real time, right? Journaling the wins every day. You can journal them in the morning for the day before, journal them at the end of the night. This can even be as simple as like a bullet journal, right? Training your brain to celebrate the wins. Say it out loud, right? That was good work. Retraining your nervous system to register safety in completion, not just in always like improving and modifying and editing and trying to make something better and then never getting there. Okay. So that's sign number 1. Nothing ever feels good enough. Sign number 2, that I think perfectionists should watch out for, that can really lead to burnout, is that you have a really hard time letting go of mistakes, right? A really hard time letting go of mistakes. Like you'll make a mistake and maybe even if no one else even knows, like you just can't drop it. Like maybe you're talking about it all the time, or maybe it's just like on this internal kind of loop, right? Like you're ruminating about it. You're playing out all the things that could happen because of this mistake. Well, what if this happens? And then before you know it, you're going to be homeless living under a bridge, right? If you let your mind go there, it was a typo in an email and you're convinced that you're going to lose a big client or lose a job, or you forgot something at the grocery store. And now it's just like, oh, I'm just like, I need to get more organized. What is wrong with me? I forget, and it just kind of replays in our mind on a loop. Why? Because for people that run the perfectionist pattern, guys, and if this is you, like, I know that at your core, mistakes aren't just inconvenient, right? We've held this belief that mistakes can be really bad news. They can feel threatening, right? Bad things happen when I make mistakes. People are disappointed in me when I make mistakes. I don't want to let people down, right? They might not, trust me anymore, and I lose authority when I make mistakes. None of this is true, right? But it kind of is the loop that we can play when our nervous system is dysregulated. And what happens is that when we're stuck in this loop and it sends us into this like hypervigilant sympathetic state, mistakes will trigger shame. And shame is one of the most, frankly, dysregulating emotional experiences that we can have. Shame it sucks, right? Our body reacts like it's under attack. We go into fight or flight, or we just shut down entirely. Okay. So if this is you and you're like, oh my gosh, this is me. Like I have such a hard time coming back from mistakes or letting go of mistakes or moving on when I make a mistake. I think at its core, this comes back to self-compassion, you guys. And it's not just like telling yourself, it's okay. It's not a big deal. You're human, progress, not perfection. Everyone makes mistakes. Like, okay, that's not particularly helpful if our nervous system is feeling threatened and unsafe, right? That just kind of falls on deaf ears. The part of our brain that would want to be rewired by those statements and affirmations isn't even online. So if you're like, that's not really helpful, I'm with you. Instead, regulate and then bring that stuff up, right? Put your hand on your chest, take a deep breath, and remind yourself like, hey, this was a small mistake. It doesn't define me, right? And you're not just soothing yourself with your thoughts. You want to actually be soothing your physiology. Your body is what needs to feel safe before your mind can let go of that mistake and trust that it's going to be okay. That's what builds resilience. And that's what over time makes it easier to bounce back after you make mistakes, because it's inevitable, right? You guys already know that. All right. Sign number 3. The third sign that every perfectionist should watch out for that leads to burnout is that you might find that you're often disappointed in others. So this is kind of the flip side of that coin of like, I can't make mistakes. It's like, then you're the one, not necessarily the one making mistakes, but you're the one who's like disappointed in others because it feels like they can't live up to your standards. And this one stings a little bit because none of us want to be like the one who's like, nobody's ever good enough. Like there's just a sense of like pride under running that just feels kind of icky. But it's real, right? Perfectionism doesn't just show up in how we view ourselves, but it shows up like how you do one thing's how you do everything, right? So it raises your expectation of other people too. And I think when someone else doesn't follow through or meet your standards. Like as I'm saying this, you're probably thinking of someone right now, right? Maybe it's your partner. Maybe it's a coworker. Maybe it is someone on your team. Maybe it's your kid's teacher where you're like, man, they're really not doing enough, right? Or they're not doing things your way, or they're doing something differently. And you feel it rising up. There is the resentment and the frustration and kind of the disconnect. And here's what's happening in your body when that happens, right? Our brain's mirror neuron system, that part of our brain that helps us empathize with other human beings and try to see things from different perspectives and really understand other people, that's less accessible when we're in a state of stress and judgment. The nervous system is always going to be focused on protection, right? Even over connection. So the more dysregulated we are, the more we're annoyed or frustrated or resentful or disconnected from people that we think aren't doing enough or aren't meeting our expectations of them or that we're disappointed with. It's like this loop, because then the less tolerance we have for other people and other people's humanity and humanness, right? The less tolerance we have for their mistakes, the less tolerance we have for their bad days, the less tolerance we have for, the areas where maybe they're not as strong as us in certain ways. So what do we do instead? I think a big one here is really just like practice co-regulating through perspective taking. So what does this sound like? Ask yourself, just get curious, right? Man, instead of like jumping right to judgment, like why do they do things that way? They're not, I don't know, but whatever it is. Hey, what might be going on for them? Right? How compassionate of a question is that? What might be under the surface here, right? How can I soften my expectations? And I think you can also regulate your own system when this comes up, right? It's always like, how can I be accountable first? What's going on with me? How can I own this trigger? Breathe, right? Ground yourself before hard conversations. And that'll make empathy more accessible because your body will feel safe enough to connect and not just correct, right? You're not just going to come in like a drill sergeant or like, I don't know, someone who doesn't want to, who people don't want to spend a lot of time with, but you want to be able to connect from a place of empathy when you have these conversations. All right, sign number 4. Sign number 4 of burnout that every perfectionist should watch out for is you, my friend, might struggle to make decisions without external validation. Do you ever find yourself texting like all your friends before you make a decision about, I don't know, what to wear? Or you have to like call your mom and ask her something before you make a decision about the kids, or, you ask a coworker to come read an email 7 times before you can hit send, or like you spin for hours before you have to make a call about something that maybe used to feel easy at some point, right? And I think we can just chalk this up to like, oh, I'm so indecisive. But it's deeper than that. That's usually a nervous system in overload. And when we run perfectionistic tendencies, we can so often struggle with decision making because we're so afraid of getting it wrong. Makes sense, right? When your nervous system is dysregulated, your prefrontal cortex, that part of your brain that's responsible for executive function, bam, offline, can't access it. So instead, what does your brain do? Your brain starts to activate older, frankly, more primitive pathways focused on safety. So we seek reassurance, right? We outsource safety. Tell me this is okay. Tell me this is good enough. Tell me this is a good decision. Tell me, right? You make it for me, right? Tell me all the things. Instead, if you catch yourself in a pattern of seeking external validation, and I'm not saying you can't like seek guidance and wise counsel and anything like that, like hear me on this. I'm saying that it's really hard for you to do basic, simple things without getting the input of other people, without getting the validation of other people. You cannot get dressed for something and look in the mirror and decide for yourself if you're comfortable and like how you look, right? You don't know, you're unsure, and you have to go out and get a bunch of opinions from other people before you actually decide if you're going to wear that thing. Okay. There's a distinction there. So what do we do if you find that you tend to run this pattern? Pause, right? This is all about going inward. This is about connecting to your body, connecting to your intuition, ground, breathe, ask yourself, what do I actually want, right? What is important to me? What aligns with my values and the values of my family? And then you act. Is it always easy? No. Are you always making decisions and when you're making them, you're like 100% certain that this is the right choice? No, of course not. The muscle that you're flexing, the muscle that you're building in this practice is tolerating the discomfort of not being 100% sure, right? That's how you build confidence, you guys. I can't tell you how many women I work with who are like, man, I just want to have more confidence. I wish I was more confident, right? Confidence is not just something that you go and like pick up at Nordstrom and then put on. Confidence comes by practicing tolerating the discomfort of not being 100% sure in your decisions, in your skills, in your ability, in what have you, and then doing it, surviving, learning a ton, and proving to yourself, hey, I'm resourceful enough and I have enough resources that I'm going to figure this out, right? I'm going to be able to handle the aftermath of this. I'm going to be able, like, what have you. That's where confidence is built. And as you continue to do this over time, your nervous system learns that mistakes are okay. They're survivable. You're even probably going to get to a point where mistakes are awesome and you're grateful for them and you learn so much from them and you see them for the gifts that they actually are, even though they're uncomfortable. And your decision making is going to strengthen. Okay. All right. And then sign number 5 that you have a really hard time delegating, even when you know you should. And I'm like sitting here recording this, raising my hand, because this was me for so long and I still struggle with this sometimes and have to like coach myself, right? I have a hard time delegating. And when it comes up for me, usually it's because I'm already overwhelmed and the thought of delegating something, even though it might not be, just feels like even more work, right? It feels like to me, it's just going to be faster and more efficient, easier, take less bandwidth for me to just do it myself. That is a trap and a lie that I'm trying so hard to work through and escape. But that's my thing, right? It's like, I know I'm drowning. I know help is available, but the thought of someone else doing it, and maybe if you tend to still run perfectionist patterns, it's not even like the overwhelm of explaining it to someone else so you can delegate it, but it's like, oh, they're not going to do it how it needs to be done, right? They're going to do it wrong. They're going to do it different. And that is what might make you more stressed out than just doing it yourself. And if that sounds familiar, like join the club. This is classic perfectionist burnout. In our biology, what we call that, or how that shows up, is hypervigilance, right? It's the nervous system scanning for threats in our environment, especially unpredictability. And when we delegate, what happens? We have less control, right? Delegation is less predictable than just doing the damn thing ourselves. Delegating equals less control, equals more of a perceived threat subconsciously to our nervous system. So even when delegation will, especially if we do it well, right? Set up the systems and the checks and balances and all the things, like even when delegation will help us rest, we know it's going to free us up, right? It's going to create margin, all the things that we're seeking. It's really hard for our system to let it go. So what do we start doing? Start small. I think that's a great place to start. Like, what is one micro delegation, let's call it, that you could do today or this week, right? To your kids. Like, what kinds of things are you doing around the house that they should be doing for themselves? Do they pick out their own outfits, right? Do they empty the dishwasher? Do they feed the dogs? Do they like, what is something small that as you're doing it, you're like, I don't need to be doing this, right? Delegate it, right? With a clear boundary. And then notice what happens in your body. Did you clench, right? Were you super tense? Did you think about it nonstop? Did you try to micromanage it? Can you breathe through that discomfort? Because you're actually not just delegating the task, you guys. In this, it's a practice for you, right? You're retraining your system to feel safe in interdependence, working with others, right? Having a team, a partnership, what have you, is beautiful. And it's work, y'all. Okay. All right. So how do we heal? Well, I think healing from perfectionist burnout is a process, as you can imagine. It's a journey, right? A lot of us are like, I'm going to heal from burnout and I'm going to do it perfectly. It's like 90% of the women I work with. They come in and they're like, all right, tell me everything I have to do and I'm going to do it perfectly to heal from this burnout. Y'all, that's what got you here. Healing from burnout is not going to be about striving. It's not going to be about suddenly being okay with stuff being like a disaster. It's not about like suddenly being okay with subpar or mediocrity. It's about safety. And it's about remembering like, hey, you are already worthy. That's the truth. You are already worthy without the performance, the accolade, the applause, the achievement, none of that. It starts in your body. Your nervous system cannot regulate through logic alone. You have to bring your body into the conversation. So here's something I think you guys could try this week. And I think you'll find it helpful. What's like one moment of stillness you could find in the day? One moment of stillness, right? Where you're not producing or you're not perfecting something and trying to make it better. You're not revising it. You're not redoing it, editing it, what have you. You're just being still. What's a body-based practice that you could do in that time, right? Grounding, bilateral movement, some, physiological sighs, some tapping. And then just reflecting on like, I think part of this is just kind of getting curious, like, man, where have I tied my worth to my performance? Is it humbling to do that? Yes. Is it like a death to your ego to do that? Sure. Because none of us want to admit that we've tied our worth to our performance. Who does that? All of us. All of us. So just noticing that, right? The perfectionism that's saying like, hey, you're going to be loved you'll be loved when you get it right. You're going to be accepted when you do this. You're going to be admired when you achieve this. And just remind yourself of the truth, right? God says you are fully loved when, not tomorrow, not if you do this, not any of that, right? You were so loved before you were even created, and you're loved right now just as you are. So you don't have to earn it, girl, but you do need to retrain your body to receive it. And that's the work, right? To receive it, to believe it. I think like that's where the healing happens, and that's where you're going to see change. So if you want help with first steps, if all of this feels familiar and you're ready to be like, okay, I'd love to sit down with a moment of stillness, not fixing, whatever, anything, and do one of these body-based practices. If you haven't yet, go ahead and grab the Nervous System Reset Guide. The link is in the show notes for that. A lot of information there, but it's also has tools, body-based somatic tools that will help you start to feel more regulated that you can use in these moments. Okay. You were not meant to live stuck. You were not meant to live striving for perfection. You were made to be alive and well. And that's like where we're going with this whole thing, right? I'm so excited. Next week, the new name, the new podcast cover art drops. I'm just so grateful for you guys. So thanks for being here today. I'm believing this was helpful. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of the work that you're doing. I'm so proud of you just for being here. I'll see you next time. I love you guys so much. Talk to you soon.
If you love Mommy's Polygraphs, leave a review.
If you enjoyed this episode, it would be so awesome if you could take a moment to subscribe and rate the podcast. And if you have just a few more seconds to leave a quick review, they really help to get this podcast out to other moms like you. I read every last review, and trust me, when it's late at night or early in the morning before my kids get up and I'm working on bringing you all of this content, your reviews are what keep me going. Leaving a review is truly the best way you can thank me. And of course, DM me on Instagram. I love to hear from you. Thanks for listening to another episode. Head over to the show notes for this episode and all past episodes at michellegrosser.com, where you'll find free resources and more ways to connect with me. If you love the show, share it with a friend. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you next time.